Per Oregon meetings law, this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast on youtube.com and archived by the city. If you don't consent to being recorded, you have the option to leave now.
Thank you, Amy. And we'll go ahead and start our meeting at this point. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting. I know they are up on our neighborhood site. Did you get a chance to do that, any of you? I know, Kate, I think you had a chance to go through the minutes.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
And Karen, did you get a chance to?
I didn't see them.
Can't see them?
No, I did not.
Okay. And Heather, did you?
Mind putting the hyperlink in the chat session?
Good idea.
Yeah, I'll be adding links as we move through the meeting, and I'll include the agenda and the minutes here.
Right, thank you.
And what we can certainly do, if you all want a chance to, that didn't get a chance to see the minutes, to click on the link as soon as that's available and review it. I can bring that up again later in the meeting.
Okay, good.
So the next step, of course, I don't know if did I say welcome? I mean, I wanted to say welcome, everyone. This is a fun meeting. It's actually exciting. I know when we get to do face-to-face again, that would be wonderful, but then we'll probably miss this. And the first up will be Officer Frankenstein. I'm sorry, I can't get that out of my head now.
You poor guy.
Frankenstein. I'm sorry.
Frankenstein, there we go. It's all right. I get it all the time. Don't worry.
Oh. If you would like to give us the update in Scott's absence, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my first name is Paul. So my name is Officer Paul Fleckenstein. I work with the Beaverton Police Department. I'm actually filling in for Officer Andler tonight. Typically, this is his NAC, but I actually represent the Sexton Mountain NAC, and I've been doing that for the past 2 years. But just a little background on me, so you guys get to know me a little better. I've been working with the Beaverton Police Department for, it'll be 4 years in August, and I've been working with the NAC meetings, or at least different NACs, since at least for the past 2 years. Kind of a little bit about me before. I have 2 bachelor's degrees in criminal justice and Spanish, and I do use my Spanish daily, so which has been extremely important to me. And then I have a master's degree in Homeland Security from San Diego State University.
Whoa.
So I got all that before I joined the police department. Then I've been here ever since. So I'm kind of happy to join you guys. And I know you guys had some, at least from Officer Andler, kind of looking into maybe over the past year, kind of, I think it was believed it was going to be looking into kind of racial bias training, kind of how that's affected the Beaverton Police Department. And I think also maybe some crime statistics that have been kind of occurring in your area, if I'm correct in that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would love to hear if you have any standard advice for people. I know for you, it's like, no duh, but you know, things like, don't leave valuable items in plain sight in your car.
No, and I can tell you for one thing, I mean, I've been the victim of car break-ins and stuff in the past, and different. I live in Beaverton. I actually live here in West Beaverton, actually. So I live and work here. And typically I do patrol around the area as well. But yeah, I will certainly touch on that. Yeah, there's never a stupid question in my mind. There's always just, we're humans. People forget things, and we're going about our lives. So it all makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any specific items you guys want me to touch base on first, or.
I would say take it in whatever order that you had planned. That'd be fine.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with kind of what Kate was talking about in regards to some of the crimes and things like that in your guys' area. I'll post a couple of things that I'll be looking at tonight. But every month or so, if you guys are ever curious, we do post the kind of statistics as far as what happened this month in comparison to last month. I just put that into the chat here. Obviously, we live in a good neighborhood. There's not a ton of crime that particularly happens, but like Kate said, some of the bigger things that typically occur are kind of some of the petty thefts. Although, I mean, most of the area around these areas are kind of suburban areas with some apartments and things like that sprinkled in there. But one of the big things that we constantly see, or at least we're seeing right now, are kind of just people just using the opportunity to check door handles. specifically on their cars. If they happen to see any valuables in the car, vice versa, it's just kind of a crime of opportunity for the most part. But there are people that have taken the opportunity, because COVID has been tough on a lot of people that have either been able to work or vice versa. And so they've kind of taken to driving through neighborhoods, or at least more affluent neighborhoods, checking door handles on cars, taking things out of them. And another big thing that we've seen lately is the theft of catalytic converters, which are basically kind of an exhaust system underneath your car, and they have basically precious metals inside. There's not a ton that the average homeowner can really do in regards to kind of safeguarding against those things, but obviously you have cameras in your front yard, or if you're kind of keeping your lights on in front of your house and things like that, just standard kind of things that might deter people. But then again, you're never going to stop those fully people that are completely motivated or in need to kind of do those things. So
Unless we actually use our garage to put our cars in the garage.
What?
yeah, exactly. that is very true as well. Another crime that we've been seeing as well is some theft from mailboxes and things like that. So if you guys have the standard normal one where the mailman drops them off, or if you have the standard, the kind of U.S. Postal Service one, the U.S. Postal Service actually has their own investigators. So if your mailbox is ever actually broken into, you can certainly call us, but we will actually kind of defer to them because that is actually their kind of level of jurisdiction. But we will certainly kind of help the investigation in any way that we can. But it's a little fun fact for you guys, in case you guys didn't know that they have their own kind of police and investigators on those types of things. So,
How are they doing on the recent break-ins?
sorry.
How are they doing on the recent break-ins of the mailboxes?
So some of those standard ones, they have a lock that's on the back end,
Yeah.
where basically the mailman or mailwoman, whoever, she comes by, and basically what they'll do is break off the lock, or they'll take a drill bit and kind of drill through, pop it out, and then just kind of take as much mail as they can, basically to do things related to identity theft and things like that. So if any of you guys ever feel, or anybody who later watches this recording happens to be a victim of one of these crimes, just to kind of make sure that you're watching your bank account or your social security number and things like that, so you don't have, if you're starting to get mail related to, oh, thanks for opening a new checking account or bank card or et cetera, so things like that, we'll certainly be interested in those. And those investigations are extremely, at least for me, I'm passionate about, just because I don't like when people get ripped off, nor would I want to if that happened to my family or friends. So yeah.
Well, it was, when I talked to the post lady, she said there have been quite a few of those in my neighborhood. And I was just wondering if they caught the guy or person.
As far as I know, off the top of my head, I do not know. One of the things that you can use, I know my wife uses it, so you can actually set up online through the U.S. Postal Service. They can actually send you pictures of what mail you're scheduled to get, even before you get it. So if I can find the link, I'll try and send it in the chat here in a little bit. But
I'm currently a participant in that. It's very good service. And by the way, the mailbox across our street, across from my house, was broken into and damaged about 6 months ago, and they replaced it with a much better unit. It's much more secure.
gotcha. Yeah.
Right. And we didn't lose mail, we don't think so.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, but no, that service is incredibly valuable because you get to see all the either letters or banking statements, or if you're waiting on a check or some other type of delivery package, you get a picture of what's coming in your mail beforehand, so you can know kind of what's missing or what's not missing. So it's incredibly invaluable to us, because that way when we ask the question, well, what are you missing or what aren't you missing, it's just for your own peace of mind as well, that your stuff's not floating around out there. So that's good.
I have a question about the catalytic converters.
Yes.
Which cars have them?
Typically all cars do, but at least some of the more valuable ones, at least they're looking into, like specifically like Toyotas have kind of been a big thing recently. Like Toyota Priuses, for whatever reason, have been an easy one. I know we've had some taken off trucks. It just kind of depends on how accessible, and I know there are specific makes and models, but off the top of my head, I can't.
Interesting. Yeah, I was hearing like they were getting like $400 for.
Yeah, they can get close to $1,000.
Oh gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to catch two of them on a traffic stop a couple months ago. They were they basically just committed the theft, and then off a simple traffic stop, I saw these cattle converters in the back of their car. So,
How big are they?
so I don't know if you've ever just seen your exhaust pipe, but underneath from the exhaust pipe itself, there's the catalytic converter itself. So it's about, depends if it's not fully cut, it can be maybe like almost 3 feet long. And then if it's cut down to, it's probably about like 1.5 feet, maybe. So not incredibly large. And if they're good at it, they basically jack your car up and then use a kind of a saw blade to basically cut through the pipe, and then just to unscrew one of the bolts. And then that's it. It's a relatively simple kind of payout for them in the end, but it's happening pretty routinely now, unfortunately. So we're trying our best to catch as many people as we can. So.
And are we really hearing more about like people breaking into houses? I know that theft at stores is way up, but I mean, are we seeing more stuff? Are there any big differences that you're seeing since COVID's been out?
Nothing at least to me out of the ordinary. I mean, you don't see too many house break-ins these days. I mean, for the most part, a majority of the crimes that I see are kind of the theft, like people taking things from like open vehicles, that's from stores, and then also theft from like businesses. That's a big one.
Really?
Pretty regularly. So if you guys do own businesses or anything like that, that's just something to keep in mind, depending on your level of security and things like that. So that's what we kind of really. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I should.
Are we still doing questions? Can we do some more questions?
At least relates to that. And then I can move into kind of some of our racial bias. Is there anything specific you guys would want to know about what the police department's doing, or?
I think Karen may have had a question for you.
Yeah, I'm curious. What if the people that are destroying Portland come and decide that Beaverton looks like a good place to come and destroy? So is there a plan set up for these riotous, whatever you want to call them?
Of course. Yeah, so our administration definitely has some emergency plans set in place. Typically for the protesters, they're mainly protest around specific government buildings. So for at least for us, the main concern would be like either some of the main government buildings, like so for the police department located off of Allen Hall, and then moving forward to kind of like city buildings like City Hall, and then maybe any of those downtown kind of core buildings and things like that, like, or at least maybe like Broadway and Lombard and somewhere off of Hall and Milliken and those areas. Any of those businesses that would be a concern. Washington County does kind of have a, off the top of my head, I know the abbreviation for it, but it's basically not like it's almost like not like a riot kind of team, basically. So they're officers that are on this specific team that train pretty routinely. And so if if there are a group of protesters, I mean, if they're peaceful, we've had peaceful protesters come into Beaverton.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that's gone off with no problems. And we always appreciate that from the law enforcement standpoint. But if anything arose to the level of Portland or anything like that, certainly other agencies, especially from that one specific team in Washington County, and then other agencies surrounding the area might come to help us as well, just to kind of protect buildings or things like that. But again, the main concern would be the welfare of people rather than over the actual buildings itself at the end of the day. And that's kind of what our administration has kind of looked into. So I can't give you a definitive answer, but it's just got to be something that's on a kind of trial or at least case by case basis kind of thing. So, yeah.
And I have a few questions. I have to be careful because I can get way deep into the weeds of things that you guys haven't heard about. So I don't really want to go off in that way. But I did want to talk a bit about, I mean, I was still on council for 2020, and I was watching what was happening, and let me see how to say this. To me personally, when I think about bias, I just read, if you guys want to read a great, simple, straightforward book, there's a book called Cast. It's about 95 pages long. And what it talks about is just very simplistically different types of prejudice that we have based on groupings of people. And what we see is that racism is something that has existed for a long time. I mean, and it's hard to know, because to me, it's like what I see is, I love the term unconscious bias. It's not what we're, you know what I mean? It's not even what we're aware of what we're seeing. And that's some of what we have to learn and what we have. But to me, when we talk about police and bias, that's like the tip of the iceberg, because the police have to deal with the dark side of people when things are going wrong, right? And there is definitely bias in all of our minds in different ways for different things. But when we look at the rules around what we do to keep things safe, it's hard. So for instance, we had a real hard look. Did you all hear of 8 can't wait? That was the term 8 can't wait. Of course you have. But the idea was, okay, here's the things we must do to make sure that, you know, we are requiring police to be unbiased. But it was like we were almost doing almost all of that already within our practices. And then there were a few things that didn't make any sense at all. Like one of the 8 can't wait is the police officer must warn someone before they shoot them. Okay. Well, hey, that sounds great, but we don't really see what's happening on the ground. And what you see is there's times if someone's already shooting at you, you have to warn them and you have to yell out at them, give them a chance to hear you and aim at you to say, I will shoot you, you know. Yeah. That didn't, you know, there's certain aspects of that 8 can't wait that we haven't adopted, or at least when I was on council hadn't been adopted. But we did take a real hard look, because we can always get better and we are always changing. Our community's always changing. We try to do better, you know, where we can. But so I know that the Human Rights Advisory Commission had made some recommendations about changes. And I didn't hear, I don't know if you're familiar with that or can talk about that, or if we've made some more conscious changes to our practices and our trainings to help with unconscious bias. I don't know if you have what you might share with us about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great response, Kate. So well, let me just hit off with the 8 can't wait. I think your guys' NAC meeting had gotten together for quite some time. So for those of you who don't know what all 8 of those were, it was either ban, chokeholds, and strangleholds, require warning before shooting, like Kate mentioned, exhaust all or alternatives before shooting, duty to intervene, ban shooting at moving vehicles, require use of force continuum, and then require comprehensive reporting. So I'll just kind of go down the list, if that's helpful for you guys to kind of show what the Beaverton Police Department already has in place, or kind of what Kate had mentioned. Kind of one of the things that is kind of difficult to kind of really, obviously. So let me just start off with, so the ban, chokeholds, and strangleholds. So whenever you're looking at that, obviously there's a couple of different cases that kind of come to mind, obviously throughout the United States in this past year. Obviously at the Beaverton Police Department, we don't teach, at least I've been on for almost 4 years now, and I've never been taught. We teach fairly close to more kind of a jiu-jitsu style, which is basically, I know there are kind of holds and takedown moves that do involve choking, but we are not taught those things. Or at least as officers, or given that, told that is an option really. So a lot of what we teach is to kind of train to kind of control the head, hips, and limbs. Obviously kind of avoiding the neck and things like that. We don't teach to kind of put your, obviously, if you want to look at kind of everything that happened in Minneapolis and things like that, we don't teach with just putting the knee on the neck or anything like that. It would either be on the shoulders or controlling the head, or at least controlling the kind of the back movement in your hips. Those are some of the core areas, obviously, that we teach. Obviously, if you're looking into chokeholds and things like that, that's more moving into deadly force. And that's not something, if you're in a position such as that, yeah. And I guess for us, for our policy, they don't necessarily ban the use of those chokeholds or stranglehold. That's more of a kind of a life or death situation. Like if I'm one-on-one, if this person's going after my gun or things like that. Obviously, every case and situation is different. But for kind of our policies and the kind of use of force and things like that, when we're looking at those things, we don't teach those just as just something to use just out of their playbook kind of thing. Yeah.
And I'll interrupt real quick about that if you don't mind. Sorry, but I'm just to share a little bit of what I learned. So yeah, what was fascinating about chokeholds was we quit doing them about 20 years ago, but years ago, police officers, they taught, it was called a carotid hold. And what that is if you hit the neck just right and you hit the carotid artery, it stops blood flowing to the brain and the people will faint. So it was taught for years as a way to very quickly put someone down. So they faint, they're limp, you can get them under control and it's all good. The problem was there were too many instances where you couldn't easily do it. So people were getting choked to death. And and so I know we banned it in our city. We're like, nah, this isn't worth training anymore, about 20 years ago. But we still have that thing, if someone is attacking you, they're on top of you and they're choking you to death, are you going to think, okay, what can I do where I will not get in trouble? Or are you like, what do I do so I'm not choked to death right now? And in those moments, to choke someone back or try to push them away, it's when it's life and death, it makes sense. So, and again, this is some of the stuff that gets hard because, we don't really see this type of stuff. So it's, we're kind of sitting there watching and hearing about it, but it can be hard. There can be certain instances where you want control, but you have to be careful about what you do and don't allow because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And kind of, yeah, and on that note, going into kind of looking at, so if you're looking at to kind of requiring de-escalation and obviously the warning before like shooting and things like that. Obviously for our police department, we of course teach de-escalation. That's a big thing, at least when I was going through academy. That's obviously a big topic, especially in policing nowadays, specifically with everything that's kind of going on. Of course, like you said, Cate, there's always going to be instances where I'm not going to have the opportunity to potentially de-escalate the situation as best as I could, especially if a person does have a firearm or if it's a school shooting or something along those lines. But on the instances of kind of for us in the police department, we kind of look at do you have time? Like basically, do you have the opportunity and time? Do you have this person kind of controlled? Is there any threat to life other than themselves, like the public, or even ourselves, that we potentially have the time to kind of potentially de-escalate and talk to those people? I can tell you, at least through the academy and then call it all through, at least the Beaverton Police Department, I like to think that we're at the top of our game when it comes to de-escalating and the types of training that we get. I know myself and other officers, we are constantly going to trainings even on our own free will. So I recently become a crisis intervention trained kind of specialist. And basically what that means is anyone going through any particular type of crisis, whether that's mental health or they're under influence or vice versa, almost like kind of like learning verbal judo, kind of they're learning what things to say, what things not to say. But just having the understanding at the end of the day, there are going to be those times where you're ultimately not going to you're not going to have that opportunity to where things are going to go peacefully. Unfortunately, there are going to be instances where a reasonable amount of force is going to be necessary, at least to control that person until we can get them into handcuffs or vice versa. And obviously, and kind of the requirement before shooting and things like that, there are going to be instances where we're not going to be able to give a warning sometimes. But if there is an opportunity, per our policy, yeah, of course, we'll give that opportunity even before using any type of non-lethal force like a taser, or we even have kind of these, they're 40 millimeter, basically rubber rounds that we use, and we're required to at least give a warning if given the opportunity to any person, basically to get them under control or to get them in compliance. And again, kind of exhausting all alternatives before shooting. It's all kind of, I mean, not everything, but I understand the points and where they're coming at when they can't wait what came out with our, and kind of with the Beaverton Police Department. Of course, the last thing that we want to do, we want to make sure that we're protecting life and making sure everyone's peaceful and safe at the end of the day. If on the unfortunate hand that force is required, immediately our officers are trained to give first aid. Each of our cars are established with a first aid kit. We immediately call medical to the scene. There's no question of whether we're going to dilly-dally getting medical or vice versa to that, or taking them up to the hospital immediately. So, excuse me. And another thing, kind of moving into like the duty to intervene, we have a policy that says basically the duty to intercede. If you, like, for example, if you see an officer either getting upset or vice versa, at least in our training, and I know for many officers that I work with, even if you're not being overly aggressive or anything like that, not to say those instances have happened, but just for example, like let's say you just get into a fight with a person, whatever reason, officers, at least our officers, are always good at just kind of tapping that person out just to make sure that they're okay and that nothing ever gets too blown out of proportion, if you know what I mean. Banning at shooting moving vehicles. Per our policy, it's rarely effective to actually shoot at a moving vehicle. It's just not the most reasonable opportunity. Of course, if you have a car that's attempting to run you over, again, every situation is different, and that's why policing is kind of difficult sometimes. And I know it's always kind of when you can Monday my quarterback when you see a video of what an officer may or may not have made a decision. Of course, there are certainly wrong decisions that have been made in the past when it comes to policing, and no police officer is obviously perfect, but obviously every situation is different, and and we wear body cam footage, and we're required to activate those as soon as we come into contact with any either citizen or suspect, witness, etc. So that's one for protection for ourselves, but then also for the public as well, to kind of put their mind at ease as well. And again, yeah, go ahead, Kate, sorry.
I was just going to ask, have there been any recent changes to either our training or our practices based on these discussions that you've heard? Or I have not been following where they went.
Yeah, no, so I think for at least for us, I think the big thing is, off the top of my head, I don't know if there's been any particular new trainings that have come out. I mean, obviously, I think we've had several trainings since then, and obviously shown videos of those particular situations, like in Minneapolis or vice versa, and what things officers could have done differently, and what occurred, and what steps we would take differently. I mean, I like to believe here on the West Coast, specifically in Oregon, we have a very good set of police officers that are trained by the state, and then also by our own individual police departments as well. But I know, at least from our recent trainings and things like that, obviously more trainings related to kind of de-escalation. And a lot of that is kind of a refresher for a lot of people, but there's nothing ever wrong with having more training or officers having the opportunity to do those things, to kind of refresh in their mind. These are the appropriate steps, because especially when you're in a high stress environment, sometimes it's just easy. It's nice to have those in the back of your mind, like, okay, this step, that, and then other officers to help you with those as well. So, but I know, at least for some of the recent trainings that we have had, I know, and I'm not sure if you're around for all these. I mean, obviously there was we call it the DEI, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion kind of at the Beaverton Police Department, or at least, with the city. And we had a number of trainings related to kind of diversity, unconscious bias, preventing harassment and discrimination, and then bias awareness training. And then on top of that, I know the diversity, equity, and inclusion group at the police department. I think that we have kind of an outside third party that's coming into the city this year. And at least I know we have a couple representatives from the police department that are working with them as far as training, one for the city. So I think the city might have a training sometime this summer, and then the police department through kind of our routine training that we have at least twice a year. They should have that coming up in the fall, at least at some point as well. So these trainings are always constantly ongoing. It's not anything that's really particularly new, but it's always a good refresher and kind of good thing to go through as well. So.
And one last thing for me to throw my opinion in as a counselor and having watched all this, one of the things that I always said, we always tried to have 1.48 officers per 1,000 and a focus on training. And the reason is if you don't have enough police officers and all they're doing is running from one 911 call to the next, to the next, to the next, it's so much more valuable for people, for our police officers to have an idea of the people in the community. If you look at a lot of what happens, about half of the calls are actually dealing with people who have mental issues, whether it's just mental, whether it's mental because of drugs or a combination thereof. When you look at a lot of our calls, police officers are having to deal with people in mental states. And part of what we've done through community policing is get to know people. So the police officers are familiar with some of those people. And by the way, often those are people that are seen over and over and over again with things going on. So we've done a lot of work in the city to try to, one, provide training, and two, provide enough officers so that they are able to be proactive in what they're doing rather than just running from one 911 call to the next. And honestly, when I hear people talk about the way to get police violence down is to defund the police, I'm thinking people have no idea how things really work, because there's dark stuff, there's stuff happening out there that has to be dealt with. And just limiting police officers is, we need enough police officers, they can be proactive. We need enough money going in that there's training that's relevant, that there's involvement with the community so that we can identify the people who may potentially find themselves in these kind of positions. So all I would say is that the best thing to do, yes, if we can do more things to create the social connection with people, that's great. But just saying, oh, take money away from the police, that's going to create less police violence does not make sense at all.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And I had two of the article, or at least two things I put into the chat. One is looking kind of at the diversity, equity, inclusion plan that was released for last year. And then one is for the bias-based policing report. So every year the police department puts out a biased police report. So ever since I started, and I know even before 2017, where it was made required for us basically. So on every traffic stop or any type of like pedestrian stop for either violation or other types of crimes or anything like that, we're required to basically at the end of each call, as soon as we're clearing it, either to move on to another call or vice versa, there's basically a requirement for us to post like who was the person that you were stopped, not necessarily their name, but strictly just the statistics of what race were they, what age, were they male or female, what was the reason for the stop, what was the actual how did you clear it? Was it with a citation? Was it with any type of search? Was it an arrest made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So in that bias-based policing report, you actually see the statistics and kind of breakdown of what particular races, what percentage of the number of people that were stopped. It'll even give you a breakdown of our community itself through the census of what the breakdown of our population is based off of gender, race, et cetera. So it kind of gives you a good broad overview of kind of the view of the type of people that we're dealing with in Beaverton on a daily basis. But like Cate said as well, there is a small percentage of people that do cause a great number of calls for service. And that's either related to their mental health issues, either drug addiction, et cetera. And a lot of the times we do know them by name. I know I can think of a few people off the top of my head that I know just from the number of times I've dealt with them. And in each time, it's obviously different. And I know at least this past year with COVID, our kind of calls for service were down from the normal amount, but we still had at least over 69,000 calls for service. And in only, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but out of those 69,000, I'm sure is a very small percentage that actually ended in some form of either violence or other some type of use of force in that regard. So, yeah. And so I'm very proud of the work that we do at Beaverton. I'm sure Cate, at least when she was on the board, can kind of attest to some of the things that she got to be privy to that. But I know even in the short 4 years, I know it's been a hard year for a lot of people during regard to COVID, but at least at the Beaverton Police Department, we're still out there. We're still doing our jobs. We're still doing trainings. We're still doing the very best that we can. And so I like to think that we're doing a good job, but of course there's always things that can be improved, and that's what we're all about here in Beaverton. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I have a question for you as well. One of the things that has been changing, of course, are COVID protocols. So what is the current protocol for our police department? You know, interactions with public and just what you would do on a daily basis.
Yeah, no. So we're required to wear masks just as the general public is as well. At least for the Washington County Jail is only taking certain level of crimes at this time. So like it's only above B and C felonies that they're taking. That may or may not change, assuming if the governor's plan goes through, at least if, let's say 70% get vaccinated, that may or may not change some things kind of around. But at least currently, if you get arrested in Beaverton, if it's a B or A or B felony, most of those people are getting lodged at the Washington County Jail. And then others are just getting a citation, and they're being kind of given a court date and then required to show up for that court date at a later time and date. In regards to other things in regards to COVID, yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the big one, or at least the big change for us this year in regards to kind of who's going to jail for what reasons or vice versa. A lot of people are going to citations. And then unfortunately with those, sometimes people aren't showing up, so they'll have warrants out for the rest at a later time. So that's just kind of been the big thing, but we're kind of on kind of standby like you guys, just kind of waiting to see what will change with people getting vaccinated and the governor and the state. And but as a government entity, we'll have to kind of abide by a different set of rules for sure. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Douglas.
So I've been in the neighborhood for 25, 35 years, I guess now, since we've lived here. And I've seen a lot of changes in that time, of course. And most recently in the last year, I've watched this beautiful new police building on Allen Boulevard go up and basically, I think, being turned on. Is it fully functioning right now with the staff? And
yes.
Is there any restriction for access at this point because of the COVID? And that also, and related to that, is there also a jail in that facility that is not being used because of what you said?
So great question. So we are fully moved into the new building off of Allen Hall. Initially, we were at the kind of municipal courthouse that was just off of Griffith and Beaverton Hillsdale, kind of across from Fred Meyer there. So we're completely moved in. Everything's operational. Our full staff is completely there. We right now currently in the building, I mean, you can certainly come into the lobby, but unfortunately we're not doing tours or anything like that right now just because of COVID and everything else. Again, like I said, it may or may not change depending on how things go with the number of people getting vaccinated in Oregon. But I know at least, and it kind of depends on, I know we have a community, I'll put that in it's called our Community Academy. It was previously called the Citizens Academy, but just changed to Community Academy. And so that is, I think you have to be 18 or older. At some point, it basically gives the opportunity for the public, normal citizens. I've had friends of mine that have had family members and go through the program. It basically just gives you the opportunity to step in the shoes of a police officer. You get to go actually into the police department. They'll kind of do some role playing in regards to maybe situations that a normal police officer would run into, and then also kind of why we do some of the things that we do in regards to like whether our traffic team or our canine officers and kind of what they go through and the dogs and things like that. So that's certainly an opportunity. And then also, if you guys have any kids between kind of the ages of 15 to 20, it looks like we might be starting up our cadet program again. So this is an opportunity for, I just put that link into the, oh, I should have been, yeah. Yeah, it's their cadet program. So if they're between the ages of 15 and 20 years old, they'll get the opportunity to ride with an officer who's basically going to act as kind of their coach. Basically kind of get to help out with traffic stops and kind of get to see, it's a good opportunity for them to see if law enforcement is kind of the area or realm that they would like to eventually head into. They have their own uniform. They're not going to be carrying a gun or anything like that, but they do have the opportunity at least to kind of step into the shoes of a police officer, and they get to help out with community events. And if that's something that they're at all interested in, I highly suggest them to look into that. So if you guys have any kids or grandkids or anyone for that matter, it's certainly a great opportunity. So a great question.
And about the jail?
Oh, yes. So we don't have a jail at the police department. We have temporary holding cells. So whenever if right now with COVID, if we end up arresting somebody, we'll take them back temporarily at the Beaverton Police Department. They have a temporary holding cell with a water fountain and toilet to use. And then once we finish our paperwork or vice versa, and they're ready to go to the jail, then we'll transport them from there. So yeah, it's a very nice facility. It's much nicer than our initial building, that's for sure. And I'm very, very happy with it. So yeah.
Good. I can hardly wait until that COVID is over and if and when tours can begin with that facility. That would really be interesting for the public.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I can, when COVID is over and if there's a possibility that the police station department would open it up to public tours, that would really be good. It could even be a NAC activity.
Yeah, I'd have to ask that question. I'm not sure if they would be able to. Obviously, if they did, I know they used to give tours at the old building. I would assume that they would do the same thing and probably with some type of escort of some sort, I'm sure. But yeah, at least with COVID and once that kind of goes down, I'm not sure what the requirements would be. People would have to be vaccinated or anything like that, but that's kind of going to be on the state to kind of what those requirements would be for us. So yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you, Officer Paul Fleckenstein.
Yeah, no problem. I unfortunately have to run for work. I work graveyard. But I was very happy to have joined you guys. Yeah, if there's no other questions, I unfortunately have to take off, but I appreciate the opportunity of getting to speak to you guys.
Well, thank you for stepping in
for your service.
on behalf
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
providing the update for us and the wonderful information.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, happy to help out anytime. I was glad I had the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, well, you guys have a good rest of your night.
Thanks. And next up on our agenda would be, just a note for the fire department, they are posting information on their website. So if you want any updates on what's happening in that particular area of our city of Beaverton and our neighborhood, that information can be found on the police Twelton Hills fire station website. That's what they implemented when COVID began, and currently it's still going on. And the next one will be me. This is a treasurer's report. So let me give you a quick update there. It is basically the same as last time. We have had no debits and no credits. So our balance is at $8,320.52.
Yes.
Of which $2,974 has been earmarked for our Pages as Pillars program. Douglas, are you familiar with our Pages as Pillars program?
Yeah.
Could you repeat that? Your microphone is rather weak, so I can't
Okay.
hear you very well.
Okay. Are you familiar with the West Beaverton NAC Pages as Pillars program with the
No,
elementary school?
no.
Okay. And just to give you a quick update on what that is and why we have funds earmarked for it, several years ago, probably a dozen or so years ago, we started working in partnership with the Halem Elementary in promoting reading with the children. And so there were many of us who volunteered to read with the kids every day during the week. And then we also did fundraising in which we could provide money to the school to purchase books. So that those children who did not have a home library of any kind were gifted with books that they could keep forever. They were totally their own. And so we've done that for a number of years. That's why we still do have funds available for that. We often use the matching funds program with the city of Beaverton, which then gives us even more funds to provide to the school. And we
And where
didn't
did
do
the
that
original funds come from?
from our fundraising. So different things that the NAC would be involved in order to raise funds. And we're always open for ideas. Garage sale, for example, is one way. People donate all kinds of goods. We would have a garage sale, and that's one method by which we would be able to raise money for it. And that didn't happen during this last year, primarily because of COVID and the schools were closed. We are hoping that things will change this coming fall and we'll be able to get that back into gear again. So typically we give them money twice a year. So books are then distributed 2 times a year, being one in December and then also at the end of the year before the school actually closes for the season. And I
Thank you.
don't have the exact numbers of how many children are being helped with that, but the kids are always so enthusiastic and excited. And we always invite representation from the city of Beaverton to come and be there as well. The city typically donates tote bags or backpacks in which the books are then put. And the kids will receive a minimum of 5 or more books each. And we've even had situations where older siblings have then passed their books to younger siblings, and we get to hear about that from the kids also. So that's just what our Pages of Children's program is. Another program focusing on education that we do have is our Care and Scout and Scholarship Fund. And that is for a graduating senior who lives within our NAC boundaries going to college. And we receive letters from them. There's certain criteria that we would like to see met, service to the community, etc. And then we can select a recipient for that. And that's newer than our Pages of Children's programs. The scholarship program is just a few years. So those are the 2 biggies for us. And that was our treasury report. Any questions on that one? And next up will be our BCCI report. And Karen, I understand you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. The BCCI meeting was held on May 24th. So some of this is outdated, but I'll just give you just a brief kind of overview. There's going to be a runoff election for one of the positions. I think it's position 1 for the Beaverton City Council. So keep an eye open for that race. There's going to be a voter forum again, and let's see if I have that date down here.
So the Beaverton City Council position number 1 was not, that vote didn't.
There's
What happened was,
candidates. I'm not sure if it's the number 1 or 1, but it's there are 2 candidates that
I can
close. It was. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to explain it real quickly. What happened was, since Lacey won the election for mayor, she was halfway through her term. So her term as city councilor was up for re-election since she vacated it to become mayor. During the election in the city of Beaverton, you have to have 50% plus 1 vote in the May election to be the only name under the fall election runoff. Wow. And so what happened was the candidate, there ended up being 5 candidates, of which only 2 were run. Yeah.
I was aware of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why. So there's a runoff for the fall. Wow. And then the crazy thing about that is that position is up for re-election next year.
Oh my gosh. Could be the same two people too again. Whoever
Yeah.
doesn't get it will go after it
Well,
again. Because it's going to be close, right? Or when, I don't know what the votes came in at. There was never
Yeah, we'll
published that I
see.
saw it.
So, well, what happened was the Alice, Allison is her name? I'm sorry. I should know this person. I can't believe I'm not remembering. Her name begins with an A. Anyways, she got 49% of the vote. The next highest candidate, Jerome Sabayan, he got 38%, and then other people split the rest. But it was kind of weird because she was running way ahead of time. I mean, she'd been running all through 2019. The other people who came on, they just came on later. So, yeah.
Wow. So she should have got it, but because of these other candidates who distributed the vote more, she didn't get 51 or 50 plus 1.
I wouldn't say she should have gotten it.
Here. Well,
Yeah, and it's a hard one. Well, yeah, it just depends on which direction it went. But if you looked at the race for mayor, Denny would have, if I hadn't ended up running for mayor, and that's a whole different story. I knew I would lose running for mayor, but I really felt like I'd been on the city council since 2005. After going to National League of Cities things and understanding the structure of how cities run, I could see it was really important for us to have a professional manager overseeing our employees. To me, it's crazy that imagine that whoever runs your Safeway is elected by the customers based on lawn signs. We have over 600 employees. We spend, our budget's over $400 million a year. You need a professional person to execute the running of the city. Setting the policy of the city, that's the role of the elected officials. But actually running it makes a lot of sense. So I had been talking about since 2007, sooner or later, we were going to get someone who's not a good person, not competent or corrupt, and they have so much power. So anyways, I ended up.
Excuse me, I have to leave.
I'm sorry, I'm way off. I'm off. Yeah, sorry.
I have to leave the meeting, so I'm going to continue if that's okay with you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Well, are we running till 8 or 8:30?
Until 8:30 or shortly before.
Okay, but let me let you keep finished going. I'm sorry, Karen.
After I leave, you can talk all you want. Okay, I can't find the date of the voters forum, but it'll be advertised on the website, and look in the newspaper for it, and I can get the information to Sue when I find it. Okay, there's one of the things that we talked about was a housing options project, which has been ongoing for several months. And Rob Zeller was the one that gave the report. And this is because of a state law, which I didn't realize before, HB 2001, which in affects duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhouses, and cottage clusters in neighborhoods, and when they're going to be allowed or not. There was a virtual open house that was held on May 26th. And I did not go to that, and I don't know what happened there, but, and this was dealing with where and how to allow housing, additional housing in single family and multifamily zones. They want to be able to get more people in Beaverton, and so they're trying to figure this out. And it's this law that was not, it's not any of the city people that wanted this. It's because of this law. And I didn't understand that before either. So the basing decisions on 3 alternatives: maximum flexibility, environment, and neighborhood content, what the neighborhood looks like, whether or not they can build these other things in there. Miles gave a city update, and I hope some of you were able to view the city mayor candidates on May 13th. That was very interesting listening to them. And the person has been chosen. And I don't know for sure when she's taking over, but I think she's already kind of started. I haven't read the Valley Times. I've been busy. The cash organ extended services, so that more people are getting help. And the city council meetings have been changed to 6 p.m. instead of 6:30. So they run virtually. So if you're interested in watching them, then the time has changed. So that's important for you to know. With committee reports, events, there'll probably be a runoff of the vacant city council position on September 21st. I told you that already. Land use, they're working on a text amendment. I didn't get all of that. I need to do some more research on that and find out, but you guys can look that up and see what that means. And traffic calming. They're trying to change the way the neighborhoods vote on traffic calming. It had to be, it was a very complicated system of having 60% of the neighbors approve this or something like that. And it was very complicated. And a lot of times the traffic calming didn't get passed just because of this voting thing. There'll be a report on June 30, so look for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. And before you go, Karen, did you get a chance to look at the minutes from last meeting?
Oh, did you post them someplace?
I believe Amy did post those.
Yes, they are posted on our website, and I also added it to the chat. But let me go ahead and I'll re-add it to the chat.
It's in the chat, yeah.
Yeah, you might have to do some scrolling. So just for your convenience, I will go ahead and
You need that for tonight?
repost.
Typically, yes. Yeah, ideally, yes. However, what I can do, Karen, if everyone else is satisfied with the minutes as they were submitted, and Karen, I can keep that open. You can provide me feedback or email in the next couple of days.
Okay, I'm leaving tomorrow for 10 days, so I'll try to get it done tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
So that way I can let Amy know tomorrow.
Is that okay?
It's fine with me. Is it fine with everyone else? Any
In
objections?
the chat? Sorry about this.
I don't see any objections or hear any objections. So that sounds good, Karen. Because I want everyone to have the opportunity to review that.
Yeah, Karen, would you like me to email these to you after the?
Yeah, that would be great. Could you do that? I can't read this chat thing. It's too
No
tiny.
worries. Totally fine. Yeah, I'll make a note.
So do we want to vote on them tonight or just wait till the September meeting?
We can vote on them for those of us who are here that have had a chance, and I'll just keep that open for tonight to get back from Karen. So are the minutes for the last meeting in May 19th approved? Any motions on that? Are
I'm
there any-
sorry. I can't hear you, Sue.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Gee, Amy, I think I'm going to have to put in a request for maybe some better equipment.
We can get you we can get you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk to this tech guy that I hired who works for free. But so for the meeting minutes from our May meeting, are there any additions or corrections? Okay, then just pending hearing back from Karen tonight. If there are no changes from Karen, the minutes.
There's only 3 of us here.
I know. Would be approved.
You get a majority. You got a majority. Hey, you're
Yes.
okay. You don't need my opinion.
Oh, your opinion is extremely valuable, Karen.
I'm sweating, making sure my tickets are going to be ready for me tomorrow.
Oh, well, have a great trip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thanks for
Bye.
coming.
Hi, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
And one of the other things that would be a report for us as well is from our Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District representative. And Mike Cerro, who is our representative and also a neighbor in our group, was not able to attend. He did make arrangements to have a replacement. However, I spoke with him, I think it was day before yesterday, and the replacement is having a family emergency, so was unable to attend. However, I did receive an email with some updated information, and Mike provided me with some information, so I'll just share that with everyone. First off, there is a project that's going to begin. It's the Cedar Mill Creek Sanitary and Regional Stormwater Management Project. That's going to begin around June 21st. So June 21st is Monday. So that's coming up real soon. And the Cedar Mill Creek across the Southwest Jenkins Road in Beaverton, near the Merlo Station High School, where Costco and Reese's Fine Foods are. And after crossing under the Max tracks, it travels through Tualatin Hills Nature Park to its confluence with Beaverton Creek. So that's the area they're going to be working on. They will be replacing the 40-year-old sanitary sewer pipe that runs under the creek, using the newest creek enhancement strategies to promote ecological resilience, installing thousands of native plants to create habitats, prevent erosion, and improve water quality, and also upgrading several boardwalks and trails. And there would be more information on that on the THPRD website under their projects area. Another thing that we had talked about in the last meeting that we were really curious about, again, I asked a question to our officer representation tonight about COVID protocols. And Mike shared with me what Tualatin Hills Park and Rec does with that. They do follow what the CDC recommends for the protocol, and they are compliant with that and with what the governor has stated for Oregon. So currently, of course, this is subject to change as we see an increase in vaccinations as well. But currently, anybody entering any of the public facilities would need to either be fully vaccinated, and they can prove that they're fully vaccinated. They would not have to wear a mask. If you're not fully vaccinated, you may still enter and participate, but you must wear a mask. So I'm not sure how that enforcement is going to be handled, but that's their current protocol. Any questions on that? And that would lead us into some old business. And one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was a couple of events, or an idea for an event that we could do this summer for our NAC, and also being able to invite the whole neighborhood and get people something, giving them something fun to do. We've certainly been in lockdown for so long. We're in the summer months. More people are getting vaccinated. So it'd be nice to get out and about. So we talked about maybe a tour of the parks that happen to be within our NAC boundaries. And certainly that kind of runs along with the whole update of how THPRD is handling the COVID situation now. So that's something that when we do have that organized, it'll be just a visit from park to park. So I'm not even sure of the total number of parks we have. I know we have quite a few little ones in the area, including Mount Williams, which is bigger, and Lawami, which is bigger as well. But we would probably have something that would be maybe a little passport. Neighbors could go from one to the other, get it stamped. Maybe we'll have some sort of a fun drawing at the very end for everybody who has a fully stamped passport and has made it through the entire world tour of West Beaverton parks. So I would say keep watching your emails for that. But I think that would just be a real kick in the pants and a fun thing for us to do. The idea is that we would have our NAC representation, our members at each of the parks, so that people would then have an opportunity not only to come up there, we'd have some THPRD people who would be able to then explain some things about what to find in the park, what's native, and certainly even looking at the projects that they're doing, the focus I know has always been to remove non-native plants and kind of reintroduce our native plants. So that's really, would be great for the kids of all of our neighbors as well. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing under old business, which I am still working on, is just checking with the church where we typically would have our in-person meetings. And since we wanted to change the evening that we have our meeting from Thursday to Wednesday, and seeing if that's still going to work with the church. So really that change of date kind of rests on what's going to be convenient for them. They have been so gracious in allowing us to meet at their facility. They don't charge us anything. So it's just a wonderful neighborhood. They're good neighbors, and they really like to extend that to everybody in the neighborhood. So I'll be finding out about that. And that's certainly hoping that by September, we are able to all meet in person again. But whenever that happens, we will find out if it's going to work for the church, because eventually it certainly will. Yes, Douglas.
Did you used to meet Thursday nights then
Yes.
at the church?
Yes.
Ah, now I remember why I've never been able to attend a meeting. I had a conflicting meeting on Thursday nights.
Oh, then we need to do this for Douglas.
There you go.
Okay.
This may be the first and last one I attend. Or another 5 years, who
Oh,
knows?
no.
I have attended it before, but as I said before, I've lived in the neighborhood for, well, we've been in this house for 25 years. So
Oh,
I've been to a few, but not very often.
okay. All right, that's more
Possibly the last
motivation.
one was when Karen was still with Vic.
Oh, Karen Scouten?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that may have been, that gives you a sense of the date. So
Yes.
yeah, it's been a while.
Oh, thank you, Douglas.
Yeah, I miss that.
Yeah. And that's it for the old business. For new business, there was a notice I received, and Amy might have more information on this too. It's just that the Beaverton Planning Commission issued a recommendation of approval on, and I won't give the number, but it's the permit expiration relief text amendment. So, and let's see, the appeal closing date for this is 4:30 p.m. on June 25th. This information can be found on the City of Beaverton website, but it's just a notice of decision. The date of this letter is June 15th, so that's more recent. Any information on that, Amy, that you have?
No, I don't have any updates that relate to that.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
it's okay. All right. And it just goes through in this letter the process that anybody would use in order to provide their testimony. And though right now it's not in person, so it's just going online to provide your testimony. Any other old or new business from anyone?
Is this when you would like me to provide the city update?
Yes,
I think we've,
this is
oh, okay.
a perfect time.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let me pull up my notes here. All right, I have 3 updates to share. The first one is about our city manager. The Beaverton City Council has appointed Jenny Haruyama as the city manager. This appointment comes after a robust process with community and staff engagement. The city manager position supports the city's transition to a council manager form of government outlined in Beaverton's new city charter. Jenny most recently served as city manager of Tracy, California. Her local government leadership career began in 2000 as the assistant finance director of the town of Los Gatos, California. She then transitioned to the city of Tracy, California, as the administrative services director and the interim assistant city manager. Subsequently, she served as the assistant city manager of Livermore, California, and then the city manager of Scotts Valley, California. And she will be starting in August. Our new city charter went into effect at the beginning of 2021 and was approved by voters during the May 2020 election. For more information, visit beavertonoregon.gov/charter. And any hyperlinks I mentioned in my update, I'll go ahead and pop into the chat as well. So that is our update on our city manager position. Second update is a update from our Beaverton City Library. And they are inviting kids, teens, and adults to read this summer, earn prizes, and give back to those in need. And here's how. You complete 15 hours of reading, listening, and that can be through an audiobook or being read to, or doing a family activity. No registration is required. Just print off a reading log from the website, or pick one up from the library, or create your own log to track your progress. Then between July 5th and August 15th, kids and teens can visit beavertonlibrary.org/SRPdone for completion instructions. And adults can also participate and read for a good cause by tracking hours read through August 15th to earn meals for recipients of Meals on Wheels People Delivery Service. For every 100 hours collectively read, the new Friends of the Beaverton City Library will donate 1 meal up to 135 meals total. And my final update is about summer events. You can visit beavertonoregon.gov/events and beavertonlibrary.org/events to learn about virtual and in-person upcoming events. That's all I have.
Thank you, Amy.
Well, you're welcome.
Sounds like we're actually going to have a pretty good summer.
Yeah, I think so. We have a pretty good mix of things, and it's nice to see. There's some things scheduled you'll see on the books for, in-person activities, which is kind of a nice change.
Do you happen to know with this library group, is the one program of the reading of the one book kind of like a book club still going on?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I haven't seen an update on that lately. I know what you're talking about though. And I looked at the summer reading program site before our meeting and I didn't see any mention of it. So I'm not sure on that, but there's definitely this summer reading program where you can just track your hours and then, donate for a good cause. The library site might have some information if they do still have that book club up.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other news? Yes, Kate? Oh, Kate, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
You sound muffled. I can barely hear you. And I'm not very good at reading lips.
I'm gonna chat.
Oh, she's chatting. Okay. Oh, headset ran out of juice. Oh, sorry, Kate. Well, I'm glad you were able to join it anyway, since you weren't quite sure how the reception was going to be there.
I'm hoping.
Okay. All right. Well, that is all we have on our agenda. And by the way, our officer guest did address what we had intended as our guest speaker information for the evening. So that just segued perfectly from his report into everything that we wanted to discuss or hear about with regard to our guest topic. Any other questions?
When is the next meeting?
Thank you so much, Douglas. Excellent question. The next meeting is actually September. So right now, the third Wednesday of the month in September. Oh, Kate's doing something. Oh, Kate would like your phone number, Doug. And you can send it to me. My email is on the neighborhood side. It's the West WB_NAC.
Wait. Hold on. I'm going to pull up an app here and
Okay.
type it in. So you won't, I don't put it in notes.
Oh gosh, sorry about that, y'all. I tried to copy and paste it into our chat and it pulled an old copied item.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead and give me your email address. And
Yes.
I'm sorry, the name for you just says Price. I don't have, is that a
Oh,
last
this is
name?
Price. Oh, that's the only name my parents gave me.
That's your last name. That's your first name? Or is it just Price?
Yeah, Price. It's actually Sue Price.
Sue, thank you.
And the
And
email
what is your
address,
email?
WB_NAC for West Beaverton NAC, WB_NAC @yahoo.com.
No, it's not. It's WBNAC.
Yeah, an underscore. So WB and then an underscore.
Oh,
NAC.
underscore.
Yeah.
NAC at
Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Mhm.
Very good.
That's it.
Very good.
There you
I
go.
will send it to you.
Great, thank you. Well, that does conclude all of our agenda items for our meeting this evening. If there are no other questions or no other information to add, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, can we just confirm our next meeting date first?
Yes.
Great.
Bring up the calendar for that. Gosh, September, and it'll be here fast. So the next meeting date is Wednesday, September 15th.
Okay. Great.
Okay. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all approved? Wonderful, yeah.
I don't
Thumbs
know
up.
if I can say
Okay.
that, but sure.
Okay, thank you so much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for participating.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.